What is the language we use about ourselves? And even if it's in our thinking, but definitely in our words. Hello, everyone. Julie and Gino back with a family coaching segment here. I'm excited for this one. Last time we talked about why we became life coaches, what life coaching is, and how it impacted and changed our life dramatically. This week, Gino, we're going to be talking about awareness. And I gave you challenges last time. Curious how that went. We could put that in the
What was the
comments.
challenge?
The challenges were to become aware of your thoughts, meaning like how you talk about yourself. When someone comes in the room, what your first thought is about them, or even in a situation, your first thought. And this is like the concrete part of, in my opinion, where I've changed the most. And because I really wasn't aware of what I was thinking about. But what happens is we think about something, if my husband comes in the room and I'm like, ugh, why is he coming in now? I'm in the middle of something. What happens is those thoughts, my actions follow. Okay, so even if I'm trying to be nice, how many times we're like, oh, I really try to be nice to the kids when they come in. Well, what were your first thoughts? Because we're fighting against those. And so my reaction to you is going to be fake, basically, right? And so this is important to know where we are right now in our awareness and how we want to change it, because we are able to do it, And so what happens is I'm kind of picking on my husband today because he's sitting right next to me. But when my husband used to come in home from the restaurant, when he had a restaurant years ago, and we had all little kids, and it was, a lot of moms listening. It's exhausting work. And I know he had tiring work as well. But I only thought about myself. He would come home and he's like, oh, he's finally home. I finally just put all the kids to bed, and after cleaning the house and all that stuff. And so I had some resentment. And so that's what I was first thinking. It's like, what, did he really have to come home this late? And so whatever I said or did after that followed my thought. And even if I was trying to be nice, it didn't come out authentically. It came out, you know what I mean? We've all experienced that when people are trying to be nice. And so over time and learning about the life coaching process, I became aware of, here's what I'm thinking. Here's how actually I want to think. And so slowly as he came home, I'd be like, I'm so grateful that he got home. I'm safe. I'm grateful that he's at work working for us so that I could stay home and take care of my children. And I could stay home, and I have the ability to be that stay-at-home mom that I always wanted growing up. And so over time, all my thought process, it's easier to do this when it talks about other people. And I'm going to talk about in a second what we tell ourselves and how the language we have about ourselves. But over time, I'm noticing that our relationship got better because my actions followed my thinking pattern, if that makes sense.
My wife's been talking beautifully and she's giving you all this advice, but let me be a little practical with you. How do you actually put this into practice? I'm going to give you some background as to how.
But didn't I give them practical information?
Yeah, so how much of a grumpy you are. And I'm thinking, this is what I learned at coaching school, because me and my wife were never competitive, right? She went to one school, I went to another. And for me, awareness, you have to understand that every situation that you are in throughout the day, you have a certain energetic response to it. And I had to find and understand what my energetic response to, which was positive. Like when I was at the restaurant, I had a lot of negative responses there. I just felt grumpy. And we call that kind of energy catabolic energy. It's negative. It's draining. And what happens when you're in that state, you feel like a victim. You're angry all the time, and you're not going to move towards positivity. That's why when you get on with a life coach, their job is to raise your level of energy for you to see the possibilities, the outcomes. Because when you're resonating at a lower level of energy, that catabolic level, you are just annoyed, you're pissed off, you can't think clearly, you have no solutions. But the key to it is, if you're not aware of that, like I was for years and my wife was, then you're just going to sit there and you don't know how to solve that. So the first part is to become aware of what kind of energy you're resonating with. The next one is the anabolic. Now, from victim to angry, you're going into these higher levels, which is responsibility, concern. All of a sudden, you're going to these levels which you just feel positive. You're in the flow. That's called anabolic. positive, uplifting. If you're in catabolic too long, you're going to ultimately become sick. You're in chronic inflammation. It's not even good for you. But like I said, I didn't even know I was in that state because I was not aware. I didn't understand. Once I understood, you can have the ability to change your state just by simply smiling, by breathing techniques, your physiology in your body, the thoughts that are coming in your mind, your posture, the words you're using, the people you surround yourself with, the things that you listen to. All of a sudden, you're not being mindless anymore. You're actually becoming aware of your surroundings and of the things that you're putting into your mouth, into your ears, into your mind. It's important that you become aware, but ultimately, I had to start out with, okay, this is what I'm resonating with these energy levels. Ironically, when I was at the restaurant, I was at a 1 or 2, maybe a 3 sometimes. But when I talked about real estate and the restaurant, the real estate and life coaching, things completely changed. I saw that's where my passion was. That's where my energy started to rise. And that's where I understood that's where I need to spend more of my time in my life.
It's funny how we talk about the same thing, just with different words.
You see what I'm saying? She can't help it. I mean, like, I'm talking about catabolic, anabolic energy.
I talk very simple. I'm a simple person, which I love. I think a lot of times we have to, anyway. But okay, so I want to go back to the second thing, because you basically said what I said.
Okay.
So let's go to the second part. No, because I think it's important to know where we are and what we're thinking about. But this is, I think, the harder part, because it's easy to say, okay, surroundings, here's what's going on, what's a new way of looking at it. I encourage you, and this is a big challenge.
Are you encouraging me, or are you encouraging the listeners?
Well, I'm talking to the people listening, okay, because you hear me talking all the time, and I think you tune me out. What is the language? And we touched on this last time for a second, but I want to talk about it a little bit more. What is the language we use about ourselves? And even if it's in our thinking, but definitely in our words, but what do we think about it? And I asked you this because a lot of times, I loved Chris Farley. Remember him with I'm such an idiot. Like, he would do all these things, and it was funny. We were watching it. But the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, he became that. Do you know what I mean?
I'm going to use a big word.
Okay.
It's called an incantation.
There you go.
He's incanting something, and it becomes part of your DNA. It becomes part of you.
Right.
If you're saying I'm an idiot, it's funny,
even
joking
if you're
around.
Joking, but there's a truth behind it. We do say what we really believe, whether we're joking, whatever we want to word or we want to use. And I just encourage you, what are the thought process behind you? You wake up in the morning, do you say, oh, look at me, I need to lose 10 pounds, or whatever it is? It's that negativity you're constantly telling yourself all the time. You spill something, you drop something. I'm such an idiot. Why did I do that? I'm so clumsy. I'm so lazy. We use these word lazy quite often. Maybe we're tired. Like, maybe we've been working a lot. We haven't actually, healed ourselves from something that we did yesterday. When I said before, your thought process follows what you're doing, your reaction later on, or whatever you're trying to accomplish. When we talk about ourselves really negatively, it comes up. It shows in our actions. It shows how we take care of the children, how our marriage is, how we perform at the job. And I just encourage you to say, okay, what am I thinking about myself, and how would I like myself to think about myself, if that makes sense? I'm like babbling over here. Because a lot of times it's so negative and we don't even know. And I encourage you to be aware of it and decide to change it.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention the word money or finance. She did not allow me to talk about money in the last show. Actually, I forgot completely.
Because I have a knife under the table that you don't see.
It just wasn't relevant for the last one. But for here, why do I mention money?
Yeah.
It's one of the most important things that we have, that we need, and that we need to use as a tool. People view it in different ways. Mm-hmm. Become aware of how you view money. Years ago, I viewed money from scarcity. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of limiting beliefs around it. It takes money to make money. You need to be rich. I can't buy an apartment. I need to stay small. I was afraid of money. That was my view of money. And I wasn't even aware of it until I went to coaching school and until I started writing these things down. And how did I shatter my limiting belief? When I took massive action and I bought my first deal with Jake. We did an owner finance deal, a seller finance deal. We were using part of the seller's credit. That wasn't money that I needed. So once you start looking at it and becoming aware, and money is a really important topic because, as you know, we all need it. Some of us excel at it and some of us struggle with it. And I struggled with it for a long time because of the way I viewed it, but I wasn't truly aware of why I had these thoughts. And are they right or are they wrong? Challenge yourself with those. I had to ultimately challenge myself, push myself away from the people that I was around, needed to go out and get education, needed a different type of peer group. And once I started learning about money, it's just a game. It's just a tool. It's just a means to an end. It's just a result that the better I get, the more money I make. Once I started making those connections and I became aware and I had a new paradigm, everything really started to change for me.
I love that you mentioned money. I do. First time I ever said that.
And probably the last.
The reason why I say this because it's something that came up for us probably not too long ago, a year ago maybe, which is, again, we've been married for 25 years. And that's why there's hope in everyone. But we never actually sat down, and because we would always have a bicker. We would always have like a there was no communication in money. My husband was really good at it, and I was just like, okay, you do that. I'm going to just spend it, but I'll be responsible. But we never had a communication. And we actually sat down and we talked to each other and we heard each other. We listened to each other about why they believe what they believe about money, like what their upbringing, what was it like when you were growing up with money? What did it feel like at home? What was the view of it? Because
yes.
As a married couple, a lot of reasons why people get divorced is based off of money. And I think, well, maybe they never had a conversation about what it was like growing up with money. Was it negative? Was it positive? Was it all just we had to spend it all? We had to save it all? We couldn't do anything in life because money was scarce. What was it like? Because you bring that into your marriage, you bring that into your family, and now you're teaching your children the same thing, and you don't talk about it with them. And so I encourage you to think about your upbringing when it comes to money. Have an awareness of what it was like back home. What did you constantly hear? Did you hear, we don't have enough for that right now, constantly? Or did we have to save for the future? What did you hear growing up with money? Become aware of what your thoughts are about it right now and how you're portraying that. Like, what are you giving to the family? What message are you giving to the family? So all of this is an awareness of your view of money.
Mm-hmm. And there's no right or wrong answer. Right. We all have different money archetypes. I am a better saver than my wife. I don't think that's fair. I wouldn't say better saver. I just had a better understanding, and I was more of the planning type, where I know that I had to get money and I had to be responsible with money and to be able to save it, but to buy assets that continue to create cash flow instead of just going out and spending it. And I knew ultimately spending money wasn't going to bring me joy. I realized that pretty early on. I just wanted money to be used as a tool to have some type of financial security for the family. Once I was able to convey to her the financial freedom, what that meant to me, she didn't understand that because she really didn't have to worry about money the way I did, as in me not having to worry about being at home with the kids. I couldn't understand her side of the story. And it's incumbent upon you to become aware of how you feel. And this is the challenge before we sign off from me. My wife gave me challenges last week. This is the challenge: to sit down with your spouse, significant other, and or your kids. Maybe you want to do it separately, together, and have an open and honest conversation about money. Why you want to make money, what you want to do with money, what you want your future to be about. And all of a sudden, you're going to become aware, and you're going to hear your kids saying certain things that you didn't know. Hopefully, some of them are really happy, but then hopefully some of them are like, well, Dad's a cheapo. Dad would never buy me that. I don't know. That may come up, that may not, but it's really great to become aware of what's going on. And then you have the power to be able to change what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah, and I love this awareness of where we are when it comes to money, because next time I really do want to talk about taking that next step and listening to the other side, because that's really hard. Mm-hmm. That's really hard because we have an opinion.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Yeah, we have an opinion. And a lot of times we're just like, oh, but but we just interrupt. And so I really want to get to that next part of being able to actually sit back and listen to the other person and not interrupt them. Again, if you've been married for a long time like us or older like us, and you've never really touched on this part of life where you're just becoming aware or just starting to listen, don't feel bad, because we're there with you. We're learning it just like you are, and I think it's important. But let me just tell you, once you start doing this, once you start becoming aware, next time we're going to be talking about listening, it is going to change every single relationship in your life, including the one you have with yourself, because that's an important one.
The work is hard, but I promise you, not doing the work is even harder. Short-term pain for long-term gain.
Well, see, I would disagree with you on that one because the work is hard, but it's actually super exciting.
It is, but you may be fearful. For some
yes,
people, I'm just saying there is pain.
Yeah.
When all of a sudden I realized I had those thoughts,
Yes.
I was holding my family back. I had negative views. I didn't have, as Ken Honda says, happy money.
Right.
I was working with unhappy money.
Yeah.
I was holding my family down. I was afraid of spending money and enjoying money. That's short-term pain.
Yeah.
But once I understood to overcome that and become aware, there's long-term gain. I was running and moving away from fear and pain. Now I'm moving towards pleasure. That's what we're trying to do. Thank you for listening to Julia and Gino, and we will see you on next week's show. We're talking all about listening. Go visit us at juliaandgino.com. If you want to schedule a call with Julia, hit her up, juliabarbaro@gmail.com. And if you want to learn how to buy apartments, jakeandgino.com. Thanks, and we will see you on next week's show.